Hello there. It's February the 28th, 2023. I have a question from Doreen in Texas, and this is about immigration. What would my thoughts be about immigration with regards to the current immigration crisis in the United States, which has been ongoing for a long time? It's perhaps in the news a lot right now, but I don't know. I would guess that it probably is, since you're suggesting that there is a current crisis, but really it's just an ongoing one that's been going on for a long time. The question is, what's your view on the current immigration crisis at the U.S. southern border? Should the U.S. government continue to allow all people seeking to enter the country on humanitarian grounds? What are your thoughts on immigration policy overall? Well, I can tell you a little bit about the consequences of this, and then everybody can kind of form their own opinion, I suppose. What's important to recognize, of course, is that there are people who are in positions of authority who are making these decisions, and I am not one of them. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you're not one of those people either. And so even though we may have our opinions about these things, it's highly unlikely that our opinions will ever have any consideration or any value whatsoever. And so, when it comes to some of these things, I hesitate a little bit to respond to them, but I just decided to go ahead and respond to this one, at least to tell you that, whatever you think just isn't going to matter anyway. Whatever I think about this really isn't going to matter. So that you can be prepared for when I get, when you send me other questions, somebody else sends me questions, that it really isn't going to matter how that works out. But it can be helpful to talk about it, to at least have a little bit of a better understanding of the world that you're a part of, and the country that you're in. There are some things that I think that we should keep in mind. The first thing is that immigration as a whole, or in general, I have the opinion that it should be allowed, that you should be allowed to go from one country to another country. Otherwise, we're declaring that everybody is a prisoner in whatever country they are presently in. I'm definitely in favor of people having the ability to go somewhere new, to join another country. I think this is a very important thing to be allowed, to be permitted, because if you don't, then you really don't have freedom. You should be allowed to go to a country that has more freedom or less freedom even. And any policy that's against that, that prevents people from doing that, could be an issue. It really could be. But in going to another country, I think it's important that the people who are already there, they also be allowed to make some rules about how you would do that. That there should be some reasonable rules. Otherwise, what about them? Don't they have the freedom to decide who's going to be in their land and who isn't going to be in their land? From that perspective, I think it's important for countries to have some laws, that governs how a person is going to enter into their country or not, or whether they're going to become a citizen of that country. To immigrate, that's usually what people are thinking of, is that they're going to become a citizen. So I do think that there should be laws put in place. So if you wanted to go to another country, if you were to look at that, then there are rules, and you follow those procedures. We have rules, we have laws and procedures to do that here. There are ways to immigrate to the United States, to be an immigrant. You just have to follow the laws that were put in place by these people who are in positions of power. And these people should enforce those laws. But that's part of the problem, of course. Part of the crisis is that the people who are in positions of authority, they are not enforcing the laws that they're supposed to enforce. And that's why you have a crisis. That's kind of how it looks. So if a person wants to become a citizen of another country, they should follow the laws and the procedures and the things that country requires and expects of you in order to go to that country and be a part of it. Now, a big issue here, and a big part of this, is that the people who go somewhere, if you're going to go somewhere, you should be able to be a productive member of that society. All right? I mean, that's just part of it. You would expect, you would think that if a person is going to go and be a citizen of another country, they're going to do that in a way that they are going to produce more than what they consume. However that's measured, they're going to produce more of value for the citizens of that country than they are going to consume, from what the people in that country already produce. Now, obviously, if they're not going to do that, then of course they shouldn't be allowed to go in there. Of course not. If they're just going in there in order to consume more than what they produce, then that's just not right. I just don't think that's right at all. Now, there are other people who I've encountered who really believe that is right. And of course, these are people who consume more than what they produce. So of course they want more people to join in and to be their friends and to increase the population of people who consume more than what they produce. So they have people who promote their way of life, their lifestyle. Of course we want more people to justify this because, of course, most of the people around you, they consume more than what they produce. And so because that's the majority, we have a democracy of some kind, then the majority believe that is acceptable, not only acceptable, but it is more appropriate than what you do, then that makes it okay, because majority rules, or what I would prefer to say, mob rules, whoever gets the biggest mob. Well, that's what you have happening in most of the countries in the world right now. What you have happening is you have a lot more people who consume more than what they produce than those who produce more than what they consume. And the way that this has been possible is through debt. All right? Value is borrowed into existence. And the whole world is, of course, smothered and overwhelmed with the load of debt, and we're reaching that point. It's rapidly approaching when there will be a global default on the debt system. And some of the best research that I've seen so far projects that this will probably take place, another 7 to 9 years, is what I can find that seems to be the best work that's been done from people who have the best track record of being able to calculate these things, that, within the next 7 to 9 years, maybe 10 years, there will definitely be a global default, in which case there will be a lot of change. And the people in whatever country that they are in are going to have to decide how they approach this. And chances are the reorganization of this is not going to look good. It's not going to look good. Chances are it's not going to look good. And I'll come back to that maybe in a little bit. But let's go back to the immigration issue, that this is the nature of the crisis, okay, for us here especially, is that there are people who are sneaking into the country. So they're breaking the law, all right? I mean, we have laws for them to be able to enter the country, but they are breaking those laws. So just by doing that, they're criminals, right? And criminals are often arrested and imprisoned. That's something that could be done. If you want to solve the crisis, then arrest these people and imprison them. All right, and as part of their prison sentence, they can be forced into labor of some kind. And when their prison sentence is over, hopefully they will obviously have produced more than what they have consumed, or hopefully they will have done that. If not, then we can change those things. And of part of what they produced, which was greater than what they consumed, can be used in order to relocate them back to where they came from. All right. So that's what you do with criminals. You imprison criminals, and then they serve their time, and we could reorganize the system in a way that they will contribute to some degree, to the extent where they will serve their time, they will be punished for their crimes, and then they can be deported, back to where they came from, and then they can try to enter the country legally after that. They can follow the laws that our country has. That's a way to approach this. Again, I'm not the person who makes these decisions. I don't expect I ever will be. And I'm thankful for that. I don't need to be in that kind of a position. I'm just making a suggestion on how this could be explored. Okay, but what you've got is you got people who are sneaking in, they're breaking the law, and when they get here, they're rewarded. They're not punished. They are rewarded for that, such that there are government agencies, there are people who are giving them wealth, they're giving them money, they're giving them places to stay, they're giving them food to eat. They are giving them resources. So they are consuming more than what they are producing. Okay, now if we would just not do that, if we would not do that, then that, of course, could probably solve the crisis pretty quick, in many ways, if they didn't do that. Because, see, these people, they are not coming to this country to contribute to the country. They're coming to this country to take from this country. All right? That's what they're doing. So if we would stop giving them stuff for free, then that would perhaps change the attitude and the motives of a lot of these people. They would have to come here and they would have to produce more than what they consume, instead of us making up the difference if they work at all. And for those who do work, this is a problem because they are not paying taxes for the work that they do, on the work that they do. They don't pay taxes. All right? And this is a serious issue. I can remember when I was younger, there was work that I was doing, and eventually I couldn't do it anymore because I could not charge such little amount of money for the work that I was doing. And yet there were all these people who were here illegally, who didn't pay taxes, and who didn't have a lifestyle that required them to earn that much, and so they were able to outbid me all the time, to the extent where I didn't get any work, and I had to go find other work to do. And this was good work, and it was work that I wanted to do, that I enjoyed doing, but I had to charge a fair price for the work that I was doing. But there were people who were not paying taxes, who were not able even to have a lifestyle that was similar to mine, like having their own place, their own apartment even, their own place to live. Most of these people, they don't have their own place to live. They're renting rooms from other people who have places to live in, and they're perfectly fine with that. But they cannot borrow money in order to buy a home. They don't have a credit rating. They don't have a Social Security number, a valid one. They're not able to rent places to live because they don't have a credit report. They don't have a Social Security number. They don't have tax returns. They don't have the ability to demonstrate that they're going to be able to pay the rent. All right? And so they by default have to have lifestyles that are, of lesser standard of living than what everybody else has. And it's based on living illegally, living against the laws of this country. And they put people like me out of work. I can't do that kind of work anymore because they will do it for less money, and people will give them the money to do that. They pay them in cash, or they just simply run it through different business operations that don't report what they're receiving and what they're giving to their employees. This is what happens. This is against the law. And if I was to do that, I would be punished severely. But if they do that, well, they get they get benefits. They get government programs and benefits and stuff that I certainly don't qualify for. So this is what's really happening. And of course, because I produce more than what I consume, there are a lot of people around me who thinks that I'm an evil person, and they despise my existence, and that for me to suffer in this way is a good thing, because of course I'll be forced to find other work, and chances are I'll make more money doing that other kind of work, in which case I will of course have to pay more in taxes, more money will be taken from me, and there will be more money available for these people who despise me. That's the system, that's the system that we have. All right. Now, with these benefits, all right, or this wealth that is given to people as rewards for entering the country illegally, where does that come from? All right. Where does that really come from? Well, it comes from taxation, either direct taxation or indirect taxation. All right. The direct taxation is when, taxes are paid like we normally expect. And that's when money is withheld from people's income, or for somebody like myself who's self-employed, I have to send that money in directly. Nothing is withheld. I just have to send the money. And if I don't, then I will be severely punished, when it's discovered that I don't do that. And I pay taxes. I pay high taxes. I pay a lot of taxes. A lot of what, of what I earn is forcibly, in that sense, it's forcibly taken from me to be distributed and given to, I don't even know who. All right. But that's the system that we're in. And some of that may go to pay debt or whatever, but these people who are coming in illegally, they're not coming in order to do that. They're not coming to this country in order to pay taxes like I do. So it can be spent on government programs and things like this to help, people on humanitarian grounds who break the law, all right, to reward them for breaking the law. They're not coming here to do that. That's not what they're here for, and if they are part of the tax system, they're not earning income high enough, they're going to get it all back, with our graduated Soviet-style graduated income tax system. So that's just, that's how it goes. All right, so money is being forcibly taken from me by force in order to give it to somebody else like this. All right. Now, if you're not producing enough to have your money taken from you, then this probably would have no meaning to you whatsoever. And I'm speaking in generality to whoever may be watching this video. If you're not working and having money forcibly taken from you to give to somebody else, then you just can't relate to this. In fact, you're probably very much in favor of this being done because that's how you survive. All right, that it's forcibly taken from somebody else. That's direct taxation. Indirect taxation is through the monetary system. There is a taxation called inflation. All right, and that's when you pay higher prices for your fuel, for energy, for your electricity, for your food, for your insurance, or whatever, for your phone, whatever you pay money for, you'll find that you're paying more and more and more through the concept of inflation. That's indirect taxation, and that's the other way that we pay for people to break the law. That's the other way that this is done. All right, and so obviously I'm not in favor of forcibly taking wealth from somebody else, from anybody, and giving it to somebody else who didn't earn it. I'm not in favor of that. So I don't want to encourage that. But that's part of what's happening here, and we're calling it humanitarian grounds. Now look, if somebody wants to voluntarily produce, work in order to produce something of value and give it to these people to break the law, if you want to do that, I think you can do that. I wouldn't complain about that. I wouldn't protest that. That is a humanitarian experience. And if you want to do that, you go right ahead. You can do that. If you want to give to people of the wealth that you have so that they can break the law and enter into this country or any other country for that matter against the law, and you want to just give them wealth so that they can consume more than what they produce, then of course, go ahead. All right. But when you want to force other people to do that, obviously, I would think that it would be obvious that this is just not what you want to do. This is not good for your society or for other people. That's not humanitarian. That's another form of crime. All right? That's what it really is. It's another form of theft, of crime. Now, there's some other things to keep in mind, okay? Some other things to keep in mind is that the people who promote this, okay, who are in positions of power, and the people who want this to happen, all right, these kinds of people are the kinds of people who you don't want in your life. All right, the people who promote this, who are into this kind of thing, you don't want them in your life because they have this belief in theft. All right, and they are encouraging theft, and they want you to exist in order to provide for them, and for these other people. All right, now there are a lot of people like this, and they are growing in numbers all the time. All right, and there are many different ways that you can identify these kinds of people, but the simplest way is that they have the belief that everyone around them should function on the basis of to everyone according to their ability and to everyone according to their need. All right, that's a philosophy that will help you identify these kinds of people. To everyone according to their ability and to everyone according to their need. And of course, these are people who have no abilities, who don't want to have any abilities, or if they do, it's definitely not enough to meet their needs. They want to be the ones who have needs. And so that other people who have abilities will provide for their needs. Okay? And this kind of a society always comes apart. It always collapses. Eventually, those people who have abilities, those people who are producing, eventually they come to recognize that they really are the problem. Those of us who produce more than what we consume, we eventually figure out that we are really the problem because we're the ones who produce things to be taken. So we should just stop, stop contributing to the crime. And when we figure that out, when enough of us figure that out, it is then that civilization collapses, So what do these people do after that? Well, then they force you. All right, now it's force. You are going to be forced into labor, and there's a high probability that that's what's coming next. Okay, let me give you some ways to think about that. All right, consider a certain state that just recently passed a law saying that after a certain date, no one is going to be allowed to have a vehicle that runs on gasoline. Every vehicle that's there in the state has to run on electricity. And you might think, okay, what's the big deal? Well, let me tell you about one of the big issues surrounding that. First of all, how far can you go, really? How far can you travel with that electric vehicle versus the gas vehicle? With the gas vehicle, you can just drive, you could probably make it out of state just fine on one tank of fuel. And as soon as you get there, you can load it up with some new fuel right away. And in a few minutes, you can be on your way and keep going. All right. But if you have an electric vehicle, it doesn't happen that easily. You're going to only get so far, and then you're going to be stuck there until your batteries recharge. That's what you're going to do there. You're going to be there until your batteries recharge. And, there's only so many stations to plug into. There's only so many outlets that you can plug into. And there might be a lot of people who are thinking the same thing. They're thinking, we need to get out of this place. We need to get out of this state. And you're not going to be able to get out. All right. This is another way to understand the nature of these laws that get passed. They are passed in order to imprison people. All right. Don't let people leave. Don't let these people leave because we need these people to produce so that we can consume, you know? And so there's all kinds of laws that are showing up that really will have the side effect of imprisoning the population. Okay, if you look for them, you'll see them, and that's just the natural trend, you know, or the tendency of these leaders that are in these positions of power and authority, is when they start to realize that, well, you know, the system's coming apart, and the people who are producing stuff, for those of us who are consuming, we just can't let them get away. Don't let them get away. Don't let them exit this relationship. No, don't let them do that. Don't let them exit this relationship, because we need them to be our slaves. And that's what, you know, that's what they are. And maybe they just don't get it. They haven't figured it out yet. But one day when they do, they're gonna want to leave, and we can't let them leave. And so these are some ways in order to keep them imprisoned. All right. Consider this wall that was built on the southern border, for example, in order to try to resolve this crisis. You think that wall is going to keep these people out? No, they're going to find a way to get through it or under it or something like that. I'll tell you what's really going to probably, you know, what's most likely going to happen. And of course, I'm not a prophet. I don't know. But what could very well happen is that this wall is going to be used in order to keep people from leaving this country, not to keep people from getting in, but to keep people from leaving. You know, you guys aren't thinking about that. You know, I remember the Berlin Wall, you know, with Germany when it was divided in two parts. I remember the Soviet era and the Soviet Empire. I remember what that was like. I was doing military operations along the fence lines of East Germany back in the day, you know, and that was a prison. The Soviet Union was a prison. You know, lots of countries were like that and have been like that. And this country could easily become another prison. You know, there's been many times when I've just thought to myself, and I've even said it out loud a few times, I need to get out of here. I want to get out of here. You know, as I see these kinds of things unfolding. And of course, I can't do that. But, you know, because of my life circumstances and the things that I value more, I've decided that, you know, I'm going to stick with it. And if I end up as a prisoner here, well, I'll have to find a way to adjust, you know. But that's the trend. That's where this goes. All right. There is no other way for this to go. Because when the debts are defaulted on, all right, when everything gets reorganized, you still have these people in power. You know, you still have the majority of people who want this to continue. They don't want to have to go back to work or go get a job or do something that requires manual labor. And, you know, God forbid that they might break a sweat. You know, I've known lots of people who live as if breaking a sweat, doing something, you know, of labor of some kind, that's evil. That's evil, you know. To consider that they would ever even have to use deodorant, you know, that's evil. Right? I mean, I'm laughing because it's true. You know, I know, I can tell you, I can give you names, you know, phone numbers. You know, it's easy to find people like that. It's not as hard as you might think. All right, these people are still going to be around, and they're not going to do that. You know, they're going to try to find a way to enslave and imprison everybody around them. And since they're not doing this stuff voluntarily, they're going to do it by force. All right. That's who these people really are. That's what they're really about. Okay. And this will of course, you know, maybe allow the system to go on a little bit longer, maybe, but it's going to come apart and it's going to fall apart again eventually anyway. With the Soviet Union, it was really simple. The people said they pretended to pay us, we pretended to work. You know, same thing. You know, and that's when there will be change, you know, and who knows what that may look like after that. It just depends on, you know, who's in charge. All right, who has the power of the military, who has the guns. All right, that's who makes those decisions. Who has the power of force at that point. All right, so those are my thoughts concerning the subject of the immigration crisis. I hope that's helpful. If you have any other questions for me, then you can send them to me directly by email to aaron@aaronbudgeon.net. I'd like to mention just briefly as well, I've noticed a lot of people keep trying to ask me questions on the comment section. I just want to assure you that I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to answer questions like that. You want to ask me a question? You ask me a question. You send me a question. You tell me who you are. Be upfront with me. All right. I'm upfront with you. You could be upfront with me. You can send them to aaron@aaronbudgeon.net. Thanks.